Most candidates believe that the hiring game is about being the most qualified. But I've seen people with Ivy League degrees, stacked resumes, and perfect portfolios get rejected again and again. Meanwhile, someone with half the experience walks in and gets the offer in one conversation. Why? Because recruiters don't hire the best resumes. They hire based on something completely different. I'm Mizes, and I've been behind the hiring scenes at Meta, reviewing thousands of candidates, and I've coached high performers across every major industry. I've seen that the people who get hired the fastest know how to show 3 invisible signals that make recruiters feel like they're the obvious choice, often before the interview is even finished. And today, I'm gonna show you exactly what those are. But before we begin, if you've ever felt like you're saying all the right things in interviews, but somehow they just don't land, drop a comment below and tell me what you think went wrong. I'm curious how many of us have run into the same invisible wall. You see, most professionals spend hours obsessing over what to say in interviews. They rehearse answers that they believe will make them sound competent and likable and impressive. They rely on a safe vocabulary filled with words that they've seen on LinkedIn job descriptions or even performance reviews. They use phrases like results-oriented or collaborative, or I've led a variety of initiatives in the customer experience space. On the surface, this seems like the right thing to do. After all, it really sounds polished and it sounds professional. But what it actually does is it makes you blend into the background. When you speak like everybody else, recruiters tune out. They think that your language is vague or generalized or packed with industry buzzwords. So, it doesn't matter how impressive your resume or how much experience that you have. You're gonna fail to trigger the parts of the recruiter's brain that makes a decision. In fact, the more that you rely on broad language, the more that you accidentally raise a red flag. And that red flag is that you don't fully understand your own impact. Hiring managers are then gonna start thinking that you might be inflating your contributions or you're hiding behind words that you don't truly own. But the smart candidates know that it's not what you say that builds trust in a recruiter's mind, it's how you precisely and concretely say it. Specificity is what signals competence. Clear, unembellished, results-driven language is what activates the part of the recruiter's brain that says, hey, this person knows how to think, they know how to execute, and they know how to deliver. So, even if your experience is real and your skills are strong, if your words don't convey that in a way that feels credible and also easy to visualize, you're gonna be perceived as a risk. And in high-stakes, fast-moving companies, risk doesn't get hired. That's why if you want to immediately stand out as a top-tier candidate in any interview, you have to shift away from abstract storytelling and into what I call impact-based communication. The fastest way to do this is by applying a structure that I teach to every one of my private clients called problem, action, result. This is the foundation of what I call a language signal, which is a verbal cue that tells the recruiter that you not only understand business problems, but you also solve them in ways that are both strategic and measurable. Here's what this looks like in practice. And so instead of saying, I've worked on customer retention initiatives, you should say, when our churn rate hit 35%, I rebuilt the onboarding flow from scratch, which reduced cancellations by 23% in under 3 months. Instead of saying, I was responsible for internal communication, you say, our internal updates were being ignored by over 70% of employees, so I implemented a new Slack sequence that increased open rates by 42% and cut meeting times in half. When you communicate in this structure, you're gonna guide the recruiter's attention. You don't let them interpret your experience through their own biases or their own assumptions, and instead you show them exactly what you've done and why it matters. And you do it in a way that creates a visual, metric-driven narrative that leaves no space for doubt. Here's what I want you to do. First, identify 3 to 5 key moments in your career where you created real impact. So this could be revenue growth, process improvements, cost savings, team development, or even customer wins. Second, break each of these moments into 3 parts of the structure. What was the specific problem? What exact actions did you take? What was the measurable result then that followed? Third, rewrite these into simple, confident sentences that start off with strong verbs. Think of words like built, increased, reduced, optimized, implemented, or resolved. These verbs act as instant authority makers, and they tell the recruiter that you take ownership and that you move things forward. Fourth, remove all filler. So this includes qualifiers like I think, I feel, kind of, or I believe. Those words dilute your authority, so replace them with direct, confident statements that leave no ambiguity. And finally, learn to adapt this language live in interviews instead of just on your resume. So when a recruiter asks about your experience, don't just repeat your job description. Walk them through your value using this model. So you want to turn every question into an opportunity to give a brief, high-impact story with a clear before and after. But Even when candidates adopt the right language, they sometimes still don't get the results that they expect, and that's because they keep contradicting their own language. So let me explain. You see, most candidates walk into interviews thinking that they're just going to be judged solely by what they say, like their qualifications, their answers, and their stories. So they prepare their talking points obsessively. They focus on performance, on saying the right thing, and on proving that they've done their homework. And that's not how decisions are made. Because long before your words are processed, the human brain is subconsciously scanning for something else. Your nervous system. It's reading the tension in your voice, the rhythm of your breathing, the tightness in your shoulders, and the way that your eyes move when you're thinking. Recruiters and hiring managers, whether they realize it or not, are picking up on those micro signals, and then they're using them to make fast, instinctive decisions about whether or not they trust you or they believe you and your leadership potential. But confidence is not something that you project by faking it or by smiling more. Confidence is a biological state, and it can't be faked because it can be felt. Your voice, your presence, your rhythm, all of it flows from your nervous system. And your nervous system is always going to default to safety. So when you walk into a high-stakes situation like a job interview and your body interprets that as a threat, your energy contracts. When your energy contracts, your tone flattens and your words lose their power, even if they're technically correct. That's why if you want to immediately shift how others experience you, you need to learn how to train your body to stay open, to stay calm and self-led under pressure. And this is what I call mastering your energy signal, and it's one of the clearest differentiators between top candidates and those who get overlooked. You must start with regulation. You need to teach your body that high-stakes environments are not threats. And so here's how you do that. First, before any interview, spend 5 minutes doing psychological down regulation. And the fastest way is a technique called box breathing. So you're gonna inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, exhale for 4, and then hold for 4 before you take your next breath. And then you're gonna repeat this for 3 to 5 minutes. This shifts you out of fight or flight into a calm focus. Second, practice your talking points out loud while deliberately slowing down your speech by about 15%. Most people speed up when they're nervous, and slowing down signals control, leadership, and thoughtfulness. Third, use spatial anchoring. So stand or sit with your feet grounded, your hips relaxed, and your spine upright. Avoid clenching your hands or crossing your arms, especially like this. This posture sends feedback to your brain that you're safe, that you're present, that you're engaged, and you become more expressive, more fluid, and more magnetic, even without realizing it. And then eliminate filler language like like, you know, I guess, but don't force yourself to replace them with rehearsed lines. Instead, train yourself to pause. Silence is more powerful than filler. A 2-second pause really commands more respect than a sentence filled with hedging. And finally, before walking into an interview, prime your emotional state. So visualize a time where you felt completely in your zone. Let your body re-experience that emotion, because emotion drives tone, it drives perception, and what they feel about you is what determines what they believe about your ability. When you walk in with grounded energy, everything that you say lands with more weight. You sound like a leader even before you've introduced yourself. But even when your language is sharp and your energy is calm, there's still one more filter that determines whether a recruiter wants to fight for you or forget you. And it's the most misunderstood signal of all. Most people never realize that they're sending the wrong signals in interviews until it's too late. If this is hitting close to home and you want to stop flying under the radar, tap that subscribe button so you never miss another career secret like this again. Now, I've coached thousands of professionals, and most candidates never think about this. They assume the interview is about their achievements and their story, but that's a fatal misunderstanding of human behavior. People don't remember facts, they remember feelings. And the hiring decision is not just logical, it's emotional. And most high achievers try so hard to prove that they accidentally create distance. They sound formal and stiff. Everything that they say is transactional. They forget that behind every interview panel is a group of human beings that are tired, they're overloaded, they're secretly hoping to meet somebody who makes their job easier. Therefore, if you want to be remembered and hired, you must master the most subtle but powerful signal of all, which is your ability to create emotional safety in the room. This is your vibe signal, and it determines whether people want to be around you, whether they believe that you're coachable, and whether they can imagine you thriving inside of their culture. Here's how to build it deliberately. First, stop trying to impress and start trying to connect. Ask yourself, what's the emotional state of the person interviewing me? Are they anxious? Are they distracted? Are they burnt out? And then tailor your presence accordingly. So match their tone, Inject warmth into your tone. This doesn't mean being overly friendly or being fake. It means softening your delivery. So use their name occasionally, smile when appropriate. Let your voice rise and fall naturally instead of staying monotone or overly precise. These micro adjustments, they really send a powerful signal. They say, I see you, I hear you, I respect you. And when you talk about past roles or difficult situations, avoid bitterness or blame, so speak with perspective. The vibe of, I'm right, they're wrong, that kills trust. But the vibe of, I learned, I adapted, and I've grown, that's magnetic. Next, I want you to practice emotional congruence. If you're excited about something, let your tone and body language reflect that. If you're talking about something serious, let your energy match that gravity. When your words and your emotions align, people believe you. When they don't, people are gonna feel unease, and unease is the enemy of trust. And lastly, end strong. Most candidates taper off at the end of an interview, trying to be polite or grateful. Instead, end with clear, authentic conviction. Something as simple as, I know I'd add real value to your team, and I'm genuinely excited about the opportunity to do that with you. That kind of clarity spoken with warmth sticks. But most importantly, don't confuse the vibe with what you wear or how nice you are. Your vibe is how somebody feels about themselves when you're in their presence. Do they feel smarter, safer, and more open? Or do they feel judged, analyzed, or dismissed? You are always creating an emotional experience. The only question is whether it's intentional. Now, if you're ready to step into that level of presence and you don't want to keep guessing what's missing, then it's time to upgrade. And I've helped thousands of professionals land life-changing roles. And it all starts with a free consultation. So tap the link on your screen or here in the description box below to book a free call, and let's find the exact signal that you need to send to command the career that you deserve.